Greetings, this is Geekbeard, and today we are going to be talking about the Seven Hermetic Principles. Except, as you may have gathered, two of them are kind of evil. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Here are the Seven Hermetic Principles. I'll just read them out, and then after that I'll go into a bit of more detail and explain them. The first is, number one is the principle of mentalism. Then there's the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and seventh, the principle of gender. Okay, so now in detail. Number one, the principle of mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. That's interesting. Let's keep going. Number two, the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. This principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life. I'm just going to adjust my camera a bit. Okay, let's go. So the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. A lot of Christians and so on aren't huge fans of that one. They find that one threatening and weird. It is a bit weird, but whenever they hear as above, so below, they kind of associate it with things being kind of Masonic or Illuminati. We'll see. Principle number three, the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves. Everything vibrates. Okay, hard to argue with in the modern era of quantum mechanics, where indeed everything has a wave function, which means it is both a particle and a wave. You know, a wave is vibration, basically. Principle number four, the principle of polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. Okay. Do you think that one sounds kind of evil? I don't know. We're going to have to finish the list first. Principle number five, the principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. Okay. Principle number six. The principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. Do you believe in the existence of chance? Probably most people do. So this idea that it doesn't exist, that's kind of controversial. And seventh, the principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. Yeah, I would call everything has its masculine and feminine energies or aspects or something like that. But these principles are taken from the Kybalion, which is a specific Hermetic text written in 1908. And in fact, it's a bit more New Age. It's not considered by scholars to represent the broader historical tradition of Hermeticism. As they say here in the Wikipedia article, which is pretty enlightening. Anyway, so it's a bit more New Age than true Hermeticism. But I like it. I like their description of the principles. So 2 of these are evil, not so cool. Wrong, really. The first one, which I'm going to let you in on, and then the second one, I'll let you in on the first one, but the second one I'll hold back until we go through some further discussion. The principle of polarity. Did you guess that? I'll read it again. Everything, this is the 4th one, by the way. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Opposites are kind of a simplistic way of reasoning. We always try to fit things into opposites. But I believe in a concept that I call asymmetry. Which implies that opposites aren't really opposites in a way. There's something fundamentally different about them. An opposite would be like, a true opposite would be like mathematical opposites, like positive and negative, or left versus right, up versus down. You know, just things related to geometry of space. Sharp versus round. Or sharp versus soft, you could say. See, already we're getting into the asymmetrical opposites. So I have my doubts that everything has its pair of opposites. Really, everything is asymmetrical, except maybe geometry and mathematics. Really, everything is asymmetrical, and so they have opposites, but the opposites are asymmetrical, which means they're not true opposites. Let's continue. Like and unlike are the same. So this is where we're getting really questionable. Like and unlike are the same. That's kind of like saying God and the devil are really the same thing. And some people believe that. Do Masons believe that? Do the Illuminati believe that? I don't know. But a lot of those people have been influenced by this book, the Kybalion, and by the Hermetic principles. So maybe some of them do. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. So an example of that is temperature. You have hot and cold are opposites, but they're really just both an aspect of temperature, which is the unifying concept here. So they're identical in nature, but different in degree. Hot is a high degree of temperature, and cold is a low degree of temperature, all the way down to minus 278 Celsius, which is absolute zero, I believe, off the top of my head. Correct me if I'm wrong. But real opposites are not identical in nature, but different in degree. That's like saying God and the devil are like on the same spectrum. It's just the devil is not as godly, so he's down near the bottom. That's obviously false. It's obviously false that to say that things do not exist that are asymmetrically different, that are separate and different from one another. If you really believe this, it's like believing everything is relative. And I know a lot of modern intellectuals would probably espouse that exact point of view. Everything is relative. It's not very cool. God is not relative. Most things, frankly, are not relative at all. I'll just finish the description here. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. Well, yeah, I don't believe all truths are but half-truths. Maybe you could take that attitude if you're sort of an intellectual and you're thinking about the universe as a kind of thought experiment. But the rest of us have to deal in absolute truths in order to stay sane in the world. All paradoxes may be reconciled. I don't believe that either. Like in the last video we talked about how God is the one thing that can complete all of us, and yet physically we can't be completed. So God is a paradox in that sense. But to say that the paradox can be reconciled means that it can be logically dealt with and kind of ironed over and turned into logic, which is not true either. God is an eternal paradox, can never be reconciled with anything. Okay. So I don't know if we're going to have time to talk about which of the other ones of these is not so cool, is technically evil in this video. Now I'm going to read some of my writings which will gradually illuminate what exactly is wrong with the principle of polarity as they have stated it. But we're going to take a bit of a detour first. So I'm just going to read this, and it's basically some of my thoughts from the work from throughout the day. Aggression underlies the drive to be outstanding. Mordecai Petrovanium, which is my name for Jordan Peterson. You see, Mordecai and Jordan are actually exactly the same name. And at the time I was writing this, I was reading Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, which is a pretty awesome book. I highly recommend it. It's very, very interesting the more you think about it and the more you get into it. I actually read it twice last year, about 6 months apart. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting themes he brings up, like sort of masculine and feminine being like yin and yang, or is it the other way around actually? But basically being order and chaos in some sense, and how you're meant to, and the Tao, I think it is from the Tao Te Ching and so on, basically refers to the path exactly on the boundary between order and chaos. And that's how you're meant to live the most effective life, according to those teachings and according to Jordan Peterson. And then he goes into he references that a lot, and he goes into other stuff like aiming. You have to set your aim and you have to focus on certain things because there's too much information in the world, and if you don't set your aim, you won't be able to filter the information in a useful way. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, we'll talk about that more. We'll give you some Jordan Peterson quotes as we go along. But yeah, the aggression underlies the drive to be outstanding. You've always feared them, haven't you, the aggressive ones? There seems to you something fundamentally irrational about a world that allows them to be so. Yes, I am the kind of person that fears aggressive people, unfortunately. And this goes back to school. I don't know whether many of you guys could relate, but I came from a very ordered, controlled kind of household. Particularly, my mother was pretty strict, I would say. So order was the name of the game in our household. Whereas school life, and particularly the nature of other kids, seemed sometimes pretty chaotic by comparison. Certainly other kids wouldn't have grown up with the level of strictness that I did. So indeed, I have always feared the aggressive ones. I'm grown up now, that's in the past. LLO. But is it really? IPO. I'm a very fearful person, is what you were going to say. So this is kind of some banter back and forth. My mother finds the world fundamentally irrational in many ways. Of this I can be fairly certain. Yes, so my mother has her religion, which is a Christian kind of sect, a Christian kind of doctrine. I won't go into exact details at this time, but yes, she definitely finds the world fundamentally irrational in many ways. And so, at least in her family, she imposed some kind of strictness. She also gets a lot of headaches. I don't know if I should say that in a public channel, but anyway, the point is that probably contributed to the fact that she can't tolerate disorder, in other words, chaos in her family life very much. Was there a matriarchal tribal society in which paternity was indeterminate? Part of me has often thought so. A certain ongoing resentment is attached to the idea on my part. Yeah, matriarchalism is a little bit scary. If women had all the power, then men wouldn't even have children. All the children would belong to women, and it would just be like some collective tribe where men tried to get lucky and sleep with the women, but they had to beg for it, basically. And there would be no marriage or anything, and the women would just control all the children. They would just be like a large collective tribal group. Okay, so here we've got a quote from the aforementioned Mordecai Petrovanium. And this is one of my favorite quotes from the book. For Neumann and for Jung, consciousness, always symbolically masculine, even in women, struggles upwards toward the light. Its development is painful and anxiety-provoking, as it carries with it the realization of vulnerability and death. It is constantly tempted to sink back down into dependency and unconsciousness, and to shed its existential burden. It is aided in that pathological desire by anything that opposes enlightenment, articulation, rationality, self-determination, strength, and competence. By anything that shelters too much and therefore smothers and devours. That's a great quote. Talking about how, that which is smothering and devouring you is like the Oedipal mother. Which doesn't appear in that quote, but I think that's from the previous paragraph or something. The Oedipal mother is like the mother that is too caring and shelters the child rather than kind of allows the child to awaken to the nature of the universe, struggling upwards toward the light through this painful development because it involves the realization of vulnerability and death, which we all have to go through. And as he said, that's the opposite of the female instinct to smother and shelter, and therefore it is symbolically masculine. And he uses these symbolic and masculine and feminine binary throughout the book, at least in the early chapters anyway, as relating to order versus chaos, or consciousness versus unconsciousness, etc. Okay, I'll continue. Men are actually less tender-minded and agreeable than women on average, and are less susceptible to anxiety and emotional pain. Where does that leave me? Anxiety have I in no short supply. Math, selfishness. Try gelling those. It's impossible. Can no alien race intercede with the kind of wisdom to help me here? We can. GRO. Ha 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 ha. You surely do not exist. LLO. That's me, by the way. More so even than the others. Life is not some gradation, as the idiot alchemists would imply, with their nonsense belief that all asymmetries are really just degrees. What absolute, incomparable excrement. Everything is relative. They've believed it from time immemorial. Okay, so there we get to what we were talking about before with the principle of polarity. Opposites are identical in nature but different in degree is exactly the incomparable excrement that we're talking about here, because it implies that everything is gradation. Life is not some gradation, as the idiot alchemists would imply. You know, the devil is not just God, but not as godly. You know, like hot and cold, where cold is just heat, but not as hot, not as much of it. With their nonsense belief that all asymmetries are really just degrees. Well, they're not. There are actual asymmetries in the universe. That's one of the most powerful philosophical principles you will ever come across. Let it hereby be acknowledged that this is a sacred document protected by the power of the Fermat hexagon. Bind! Okay, that's the part I really wanted to get to. But I'll continue reading this document, this diary I wrote. This is just becoming stream of consciousness rubbish now, I think. You called? Alk? I did not, LLO. Nor do I have any interest in conversing with you. Alk is, of course, short for alchemist. In this document, I seem to be slightly confused about the origin of these principles, but after some searching, I realized they're not strictly alchemy, they are actually Hermeticism. They are the Seven Hermetic principles. However, the Seven Hermetic principles had a huge influence on medieval European alchemy and Hermeticism in general. So it's ultimately much the same thing. You called, Alk? I did not, LLO, nor do I have any interest in conversing with you. Oh, that's where I think you're wrong, Alk. I am the elite of the elite, above them all. I know the future of the human species. That was Alk speaking, just to clarify. Stop, LLO. I already know where you are going with this. Oh, really? Alk? The future of the species. Well, maybe I should put the name first. LLO says the future of the species is the so-called rebus, according to you and your ilk. Have you heard of the rebus? The perfect being, genderless and soulless. A construct, an artifice, a focus. Okay, that's basically the end of that document. But yeah, the rebus is actually the secret doctrine of the, you want to say Illuminati, the elite, the Masons, the alchemists particularly. That is modern alchemy. They believe in transforming the future of the human species into something called the rebus, which is a perfect being. As we said here, genderless, soulless, basically unified with machines. And I didn't prep this stuff, so maybe I should look up rebus and prep that properly for next episode. That could be a good thing to get into next episode. But this is some really deep stuff. So, yeah. Let me know in the comments if you've heard of the rebus, or if you know of any good YouTube videos about it. Probably won't find that many, because it's one of those things that the tech dystopian overlords don't allow us to talk about. On the other hand, many of the elites in secret worship such things. Okay, let's move on. I'll repeat number 4, the principle of polarity, just so you can hear how evil it really is. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. Okay, we'll read a bit of the next document. Today, I am no longer here. I'm not really growing much through my contact with people here and in this capacity any longer. 2 months max and I need to make something happen. Get a new job, wherever. Hopefully an upgrade of some kind. Then, 6 months later, move on again. Okay, now we're going to delve into some more philosophical stuff. Space, space, space. I like the Hindu/Buddhist concept that the vacuum represents pure mind/infinite potential. Though I can't believe it constitutes actual mind. More like potential thereof. Mind must be primarily contained to physical matter, or, let us say, therein and thereby, centered. There are, however, the spiritually unhealthy on earth that declare all is mind. This is false and an unhealthy belief. Still others say that space itself is filled with infinite light, calling it Ein Sup Ayor in Hebrew, and as such, space is practically God consciousness itself. Also bad. The only truly permissible such concept is God, who must, however, be conceived as total in time, not merely space. That is, all the time that has ever been and is. Brackets, not will be. Such could only be believed of a fatist/determinist, a spiritual degenerate without compare. End bracket. Rereading my work, we observe that the weekend seems to do me quite some good, and much more productive thereafter, you will probably agree. This does presumably not imply that I would be better off with nothing but weekends, as it was before I had my job. I was unemployed for a long time. Over 10 years. Let it hereby be acknowledged that this is a sacred document under the protection of the Fermat hexagon. Bind! Then, when I got too deep, things may have snowballed, momentumed beyond anyone's control. Earth Hour. Go, 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 go. Okay, next document. This is a long one. I don't know if we're going to get through all of this. Actually, I just want to review part of the last one. Because we got to another part. We got to the second evil principle of Hermeticism. I'll reread the paragraph again. There are, however, the spiritually unhealthy on earth that declare all is mind. This is false and an unhealthy belief. And the very first principle of the Seven Hermetic Principles is the principle of mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. So why do I think this is spiritually unhealthy? Because the universe has evolved an incredible degree to produce you, to produce humans. And what are humans if not the mind? We are defined by our unique ability, mental ability, as compared to animals anyway. So are you saying the all is mind? Is that like saying that it doesn't really matter that we evolved to do all this and through all that pain and suffering? To become the pinnacle of the mental world, of mental capacity? And we still have to live that. All of us still have to learn things. All of us still have to use our minds. And that's difficult and painful. Just ask the average school child. Do they like having to go to school in order to, cultivate their mind? Most children would rather just run around or play computer games. They don't want to cultivate their mind. And it's understandable because it's sort of hard, isn't it? Maths is hard. I'm a maths guy. But the better you are at maths, the harder it gets, frankly. There's always hard stuff out there. But a lot of the other stuff is hard too. I find writing hard. I find speaking hard, which is part of why I'm having a go at doing it on YouTube. Okay, let's get into the final file. I have pretty much formally requested to be made a drone of the Femtrix. I mean, look at all these other drones and cucks having such better lives, lol. Yeah, sometimes it helps me to look at other people and think of them as drones. Of the Femtrix, as I'm calling it, but it's basically the Matrix. Thinking of other people as sort of robots that just respond to stimuli and just do robotic things. They're barely even real people. But I'll continue. The drone, endless nagging in the ear, the earworm. It's going to happen. Just you watch. And it will upgrade me massively because of what it is. A direct substitution for my mother. Break. If I promise to commit myself to the devoted pursuit of Chomskyan numerology, you know, worship of the AI god, will you do what I ask? I don't know who I'm talking to, whoever reads my documents. Well, maybe I'm talking to you then, because this is the first time I've aired them publicly. Okay, something more real now. I need biofeedback. Sure, I know it's kind of everywhere, but I need more than that. I need to watch it, see it happening. Better to understand myself within this current vehicle and time-space context. Screws programming, actually. I can achieve the basics of what I want to achieve purely in software, like that which I've already downloaded. Not binaurality, though, but I may attempt to make up for that by using one ear at a time. Have you guys heard of binaurality? Binaural beats? That's pretty cool. Didn't really do that much for me personally, but maybe I'll go back to it sometime. Break. And if you did want to do a little programming, create a beat-producing program which is influenced by footsteps, i.e. for the purpose of biofeedback development. Break. It's ironic. I didn't relate much at all to Snow Crash at the time, but I mean, I'm now an admitted number tweaker, so I'm certainly starting to attribute a vague relevance. Snow Crash is another book I read early last year, sort of at the similar time that I was first reading Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Yeah, Snow Crash is a really cool book. Definitely recommend that. Do you want me to give you a synopsis? I can give you a synopsis without spoilers, basically. It's kind of talking about... It's futuristic. It's cyberpunk. And the world is basically controlled by corporations, and there's all this... And there's the metaverse. In fact, this book basically invented the term metaverse before Meta, the Facebook company, stole the word. But it's sort of about the idea that there's, oh my god, it's complicated, that since Sumerian times, Enki, the Sumerian god, was responsible for the Tower of Babel, maybe, or he created a virus kind of thing. The Tower of Babel was really a virus which infected people. Yeah. And now in the cyberpunk world, people that are very sensitive, like I called myself a number tweaker, which I sort of still am. I get a lot of intense emotions out of numbers sometimes. People that are like number tweakers or sort of code tweakers can be manipulated by things that are projected at them through screens, which is an idea with some weird connections, like to the famous computer game called Polybius, which was banned after the CIA allowed it to experiment on people for a certain period of time. So there's all kinds of weird stuff going on out there. Are we really vulnerable to some kind of blast from our devices that would basically mind control us or overwhelm or activate some genetically programmed weakness of the brain or virus of the brain? That would be scary, but then why, if it sounds ridiculous, then why did the CIA need to shut down Polybius, or whatever it was called? They're preparing us for something bigger. They don't want people to evolve and to adapt and to be prepared for what's coming. They want people to suddenly be blasted and overwhelmed. Oh, at least that's my take. I doubt we'll get many people still watching 40 plus minutes into the video, but if you've got your own take on that, I'd like to hear it. And read Snow Crash, it's great. Next section. Were the doctors telling the truth about my behavior, or just using provocation tactics to help me? Something I equally will presumably never know. And these are the psychiatrists from the mental health unit that I stayed in. Once again, probably shouldn't say that on YouTube, but nobody's watching 43 minutes into this video anyway, right? 42.5, 42 and a half minutes. Let it hereby be acknowledged that this is a sacred document under the protection of the Fermite Hexagon. Bind. But yes, the doctors, psychiatrists, when you're in a psychiatrically vulnerable state, have this habit of like trying to provoke you about sort of saying these things that really cut to the core. And they told me last time that I had said something specific to them last time in some kind of a trance. I don't know whether to believe them or not. I wish I could, or I wish I knew whether what they were saying was actually the truth. Somehow. I wish I could find that out. Because I kind of mixed my metaphors. Well, it's not really that. I said a lot, according to them, I said a lot more than I ever would have expected to say. And I combined concepts in ways that I wasn't supposed to. But maybe your brain breaks down a bit. Anyway, that was the aftermath of my last psychotic episode, where I was taken to an adult mental health unit and had to see psychiatrists every couple of days and talk to them. And after about a week, I got out, so it wasn't too bad. As long as you make the effort to improve and you like become more cogent and coherent, then they'll be like, okay, he's back to normal now. And as long as you're taking your medication in the hospital and it seems to be improving you, they usually let you out after, a week is pretty good. I don't know what other people's experiences are like in those settings. Definitely comment if you have any thoughts on that, or certainly if you have experience of it. Although I can imagine it is a bit imposing to talk about in a public forum. but you can do so anonymously. I wouldn't stress about Google knowing your identity because, frankly, they know everything anyway already. My dad is really a lot like the children from the show Travelers. But now I must wonder whether or not I myself, in fact, am also. I don't know if you've seen the Netflix show Travelers, but the children in the show sometimes get kind of taken over and they're able to just blurt out these messages from the future. Because that's all the people in the show kind of come from the future, and then they inhabit the bodies of like people that have died. But then children can be overwhelmed and like taken control of temporarily just to basically distribute a message to the travelers. So my dad sometimes says weird things, and then when I take him up on it later on, he just doesn't even seem to register with him any longer. But if I said the things that the psychiatrist had said I had said, then maybe I have such moments as well. I have moments where I'm not in control of myself and things just bubble up from inside. Higgledy-piggledy. Other people can very much feel that way too, of course. Who knows what layer of will/personality you are really connecting at any one time? For future reference, a current theory of mine is that some portion of ancestral will/personality lives through each of us. Break. Quite interesting. Wikipedia, apophatic theology. It means approaching the concept of God only through negation, i.e., what he or it isn't. Pretty reasonable, I think. Apophatic theology. Yeah, that's a pretty deep one. I hope you guys would be interested in reading some more about that. I will reference it in some of my future videos and maybe try to talk more about it. But I also feel a bit inexperienced in this subject. I've tried to read a few philosophers that count as apophatic, like Philo, but it's also hard going, especially when you're talking about the fact that most ancient philosophy doesn't feel nearly that relevant to the modern world anymore. Pre-Christian Greeks also had some interesting ideas. I believe they're called the Neoplatonics, referring instead to the One, a concept seemingly derived from Plato's form of the good, which he held above all others. Ironic that the One has in modern times become more associated with the concept of a messiah or exceptional hero, such as Neo from The Matrix. Perhaps, in that sense, it is natural to see these characters as antichrists. Every aspect of them, their superpowers, etc., detracts from the greatness of the original One, God. For reference, I do believe God could manifest fully in just one person at some instant in time, with all the implications thereof. Yep, and that will be discussed in future videos probably, because last year I wrote a lot about that, or a lot connected to that idea anyway. Break. Everything is connected. All is mind. Wrongful philosophies. Connection can be broken, especially by retraction of consent. Consent is like a really huge word in some of my philosophies, and in general is highly temporal. Space itself represents the void, i.e. lack of connection, but simultaneously infinite potential thereof. We are no more eternally connected with one another than our fleshes being eternally in heat-conducting contact, or our bodily fluids in mixing and exchange. I just have to take a brief pause. Okay, back. Break. To what am I the key, if anything? I can't read religion/philosophy on Wikipedia. It just doesn't work. Perhaps like the nature of God, philosophy can only be enlightened indirectly through probing, stimulation, humor, irony, and art. I mean, Wikipedia is about the polar opposite of lyricism, is it not? Drier than dry mud that's been dried in a dryer. And that's not how substantial spiritual philosophical meaning should be cultivated. Break. I have crossed a line today. It might be better to retract, but in light of recent events, it is clear that I should be more willing to release, not live in fear. We may well enter a terrible lull, however. That was sort of the real fear after all. If I don't engage in ordering, i.e. sanctification, i.e. onion layering of the mind/self, I won't have left enough inattention/conflict to draw upon. I will become a person boring even to himself. That one really bites. Close to home. Break. I'm inclined to presume that recent act was stimulated primarily by my description of my meditative practices/efforts. We'll probably cover that in a whole other video, my meditative techniques, because there's a fair bit I have to say about that. Fair bit of experimentation in meditative techniques. Usually to try and get visual stimulation. I love it when you're in a meditative state and you just get like random epic visuals just flowing through you. And it's kind of like watching a movie. Any of you ever get that? It's pretty cool when it happens. On the weekend, I once again experienced a familiar pattern. Only on Sunday morning did things become highly visual. And by the afternoon, it was gone again. Do carb and coffee loading actually play a positive role? Break. Zen teacher Robert Aitken wrote in The Gateless Barrier, and I quote, "The presentational mode of communication is very important in Zen Buddhist teaching. This mode can be clarified by Suzanne Langer's landmark book on symbolic logic called Philosophy in a New Key. She distinguishes between two kinds of language, presentational and discursive. The presentational might be in words, but it also might be a laugh, a cry, a blow, or any other kind of communicative action. It is poetical and non-explanatory, the expression of Zen. The discursive, by contrast, is prosaic and explanatory. The discursive has a place in Zen discourse like this one, but it tends to dilute direct teaching. No secret decoder ring will help you decipher Zen speak. After you've practiced a while, particularly with a teacher, you may catch on or not. Be skeptical of explanations of koan study that are found on the internet, which are often peppered with academic explanations that are painfully wrong because the scholar analyzed the koan as if it were discursive prose. Answers will not be found through normal reading and study. They must be lived. That's a quote from Zen 101, An Introduction to Zen Buddhism on learnreligions.com. Yes, I like those quotes a lot. However, in listening to some Zen koans myself more recently, I wasn't super duper impressed by it. At the time I wrote this, I was in the middle of reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which is a really good book. Definitely recommend that one. So I got a bit interested in Zen. Anyway, that's the end of the file, and what can I say in summary? The Kybalion, the Seven Hermetic Principles, we showed that we disagreed with principle number 1, the principle of mentalism, the all is mind, the universe is mental, and principle number 4, the principle of polarity. Well, I sort of agreed somewhat with the first half of it. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. But I didn't agree with the rest of it, where he says, like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. No, because God is an infinite paradox. Anyway, I think it's about time we round out this video. I'd absolutely love to hear from any of you. You can send me an email at geekbeard3000@gmail.com if you really want to. If you want to say something too private, like discussion of your psychiatric conditions and experiences that relate to mine, let it hereby be acknowledged that this is a sacred document protected by the Fermat Hexagon. Bind. Like, comment, and subscribe, of course, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.